WATE 6 on your side. News at 6 starts now.
Right now at 6, protests at the University of Tennessee as a white nationalist group comes to campus.
Oh, and we're asking you to join us.
I consider the entire white supremacist organization to be a terrorist group.
Dueling ideologies collide as the Traditionalist Worker Party holds an event at UT. Our team coverage right now at 6. We want to begin tonight by getting right to that top story. Protests in Knoxville this afternoon. A white nationalist group called the Traditionalist Worker Party held a speaking event inside Buehler Hall on UT's campus. Between that speech, the protests, and even some people getting placed in handcuffs, there is a lot to break down tonight. But we are going to start with the protesters who were there to meet the TWP and its leader, Matthew Heimbach. The people in this crowd were very upset, and they had no problem making their feelings known through signage and with their voices. For coverage, let's send things out live to 6 on Your Side reporter Jennifer Webb. She was out at those protests today. All right, Jennifer, tell us about what you saw just a matter of hours ago.
Hey, Mark. Well, about 200 protesters gathered here on the steps of Hoskins Library to protest Matthew Heimbach. They marched through campus today chanting, yelling, and some of them even yelling at police officers. They tell me they're very upset that Matthew Heimbach was allowed on their campus.
This is the beginning of us not just taking back our university campuses. We're taking back the streets.
As Matthew Heimbach and the Traditionalist Worker Party made their way to Buehler Hall, students marched through campus in protest.
No Nazis! No KKK! No fascists! USA!
We're here kind of forming as a student body to kind of let our administration know that we do not want that here on campus. We don't want hate groups or discriminatory groups here associated with UT, and we want them to know that they've kind of failed us as a student body.
The university's Progressive Student Alliance organized the protest in reaction to Heimbach, the leader of the Traditionalist Worker Party and white nationalist, speaking on campus Saturday as part of his college lecture series.
I consider the entire white supremacist organization to be a terrorist group. They have committed violent crimes, and aside from that, they are racist and they hold Nazi ideologies to be true in their minds. It's insane.
Protesters originally planned to end their march on the Hill in front of Ayers Hall, but decided to stay across Cumberland Avenue to avoid police checkpoints, some even yelling profanities at officers while also condemning Heimbach for his hate speech.
No riot here! Why you got all riot gear?
We're sort of indirectly supporting this because of all of the security and everything, and so no, I mean, we don't want them here and we don't want security here. We don't want any part of supporting this guy, so I think to some extent, yes, it does go hand in hand.
But protesters tell me the main goal of Saturday's protest was to fight for a welcoming campus for all students, regardless of color, religion, or background.
Well, I think everyone should feel safe to come to school personally, you know? I mean, no one should ever feel like there's people on this campus that are pro-white supremacy.
Now, protesters had originally planned on seeing Heimbach before he went into Buehler Hall, but they missed him. But some of those protesters did see him after he was done speaking. Mark.
Our Jennifer Webb live on the UT campus tonight. Thank you, Jennifer. Those protesters you just heard from were joining others in making their voices heard against Matthew Heimbach. But what exactly did he have to say today? WATE 6 on Your Side reporter Don Dare was the only television news reporter inside the room for the lecture. Tonight, Don takes us there and walks us through the TWP's quick exit as our top story coverage continues.
The Traditionalist Worker Party kicked off a series of campus lecture tours in Buehler Hall, right behind us here.
We're taking back the streets, we're taking back our communities, we're taking back our future, and we're taking back our nation.
Party Chairman Matthew Heimbach pumped up members of the Traditionalist Worker Party, the TWP, moments before his lecture on the UT campus.
We're taking it back.
The controversial group's march across the 11th Street pedestrian bridge was fast, as a heavy police presence protected party members from protesters assembled below. Once inside Buehler Hall, the space rented for 3 hours, the National Socialistic chairman was quick to mention reaction to their presence on campus.
The question is, are you really free if you have to go through a security checkpoint? Are you really free the fact that people want to threaten to kill you? And if they had the ability, they would.
Matthew Heimbach's lecture was titled Socialism or Death. His appearance was meant as an open forum for people interested in learning about the party's cause. But only about 36 party members filled the lecture hall that could seat several hundred people.
We have a lot of local interest, and we have a very active chapter. I think everybody has reported on the rock being tagged 1,000 times to death by now, but we have a really good chapter, and people just wanted to hear from us.
Matthew Heimbach's 1 hour and 40-minute lecture was interrupted often by applause. TWP said 1/3 of those listening to the speech were local. The others were from out of state. But no university students were inside the hall.
Students, that we wanted to be able to open things up, to be able to allow members of the campus to come and join us, aren't allowed in for security concerns. Why? Because people actually want to kill us.
As a self-professed white nationalist party, their allegiance was clearly stated. Leaving Buehler Hall was a different matter. It was noisy. As counter-protesters lined the street below the pedestrian crosswalk, jeers were exchanged between the groups. The loudest protest was made as the white supremacist group speeded away in their cars for an after-party rally at an undisclosed location.
Our Don Dare tonight, and while no students were inside, the TWP says hundreds of people were able to watch the lecture as it was streamed online. As you have been seeing, there was a lot of law enforcement on hand for today's event. Those officers had the vital job of keeping the peace in a highly charged atmosphere. And though things never got out of hand, they did put half a dozen people in handcuffs at one point. 6 on Your Side reporter Madison Keevy joins us live to talk about today's security efforts and what came of those people who got cuffed. Madison?
Well, Mark, just hours ago, right behind me here on the Hill, there was that security checkpoint that we've been talking about. After today's events, I spoke with the UT Knoxville police chief, and he says the plan was about being proactive, not reactive.
I'm unaware at this point of any property that was damaged. We had no medical issues, so for my part, it was very successful.
UT's Chief of Police, Troy Lane, says 6 people were detained and cited for obstructing a highway. His team of 40 worked with the Knoxville Police Department, Tennessee Highway Patrol, and Knox County Sheriff's Office. Nearly 200 officers total. And protesters rallying against the white nationalist event noticed.
They're there to just in general protect people, and that's good to see because, you know, sometimes things can go wrong at these. They're not always safe.
Others chanting against officers along Cumberland Avenue.
You have to be ready for the worst, and I think that's why we had so many people here. You want to be prepared for the worst. When things start flying through the air, people start fighting, God forbid worse. That's not the time to run back to the car and grab your equipment, so it's much easier to have it with you. And frankly, given the weather conditions, I don't blame them for bundling up as much as they can.
Chief Lane says the original safety plan changed when roughly 250 protesters chose not to enter the security checkpoint on the Hill.
We pretty carefully selected this location because we felt that we could make it secure. The fact that people chose not to come into the secure area, I can't help that.
Now, for the cost for all of these officers to be out here today, Chief of Police says that he'll have those numbers for UT Police specifically in the next week. Mark?
All right, a tense day on the University of Tennessee campus. Thank you, Madison Keevy. Tonight at 11, we'll have a comprehensive look at today's events at UT. There's also complete coverage on our website, WATE.com.